or Lori? Who would like to start? Did you guys make arrangements? This was doing it?
I can do it.
Jamie.
I
Okay,
could find
Jamie,
it.
you're up.
These are the notes from the Budget and Finance Committee meeting on August 22nd. This is the update regarding the 2020 referendum. The committee met with representatives from the Spiesel Architectural Group and Greyhawk Construction Manager to review progress of the interior and exterior alterations and additions financed by the Holmdel 2020 referendum. They welcomed discussions with the committee and received feedback regarding various items. Field reconstruction at the Satsuma High School. All items on the punch list have been completed. A request has been made of the contractor to provide additional irrigation of the areas next to the stairs and around the volleyball courts, along with the redistribution of the excess soil at the berms, and provide for an underground pipe for the water runoff from the retention basin. Interior renovations and exterior site renovations at Indian Hill and Village. At both Village and Indian Hill elementary schools, all the underground drainage, piping, and structures have been installed. The bus loop is starting to take shape with the installation of the sidewalks and curb. The parking lot pavement is scheduled to be completed this week. The roof repairs at both Village and Indian Hill have been completed. However, there were some areas that were previously monitored by the custodians and continue to leak at both schools. These areas will have to be further investigated, as the leaks may be attributable to areas from under the solar panels. The interior renovations at both Village and Indian Hill are well underway and nearing completion. Installation of the new floors are complete at both schools. The installation of the new floor in the multi-purpose room is almost complete, with the installation of the base molding and the line painting to be completed immediately. Casework has arrived at both schools and will be installed immediately. Exterior site additions and renovations and interior alterations at Satsuma High School. At the high school, the old maintenance bay, wrestling room, and wood shop have been replaced with a new engineering wing. New masonry partitions have defined the new spaces. In addition, the music rooms have received new ceiling grids and tile to follow along with the new flooring. The acoustical panels will arrive the second week of September. In the auditorium, the new flooring has been installed and will be ready for the beginning of school. At SATS, the boys and girls locker rooms have been started with the rough plumbing and are scheduled to be completed by October 31st. The two music rooms have had additional scope added and are expected to be completed at the end of September. The area in SATS where the stage previously stood has been transformed into additional cafeteria space and includes an added storage closet. On the exterior of both buildings, the majority of the underground utilities have been installed and stubbed up, ready for the new additions. The roofing repair is continuing into the high school roof, with SATS roof repairs having been completed. Successfully completed projects are land acquisition, Package D, gym, HVAC, Package H, high school roof, Package C, Rogie Field stadium lighting replacement, and Package B, interior door and hardware replacement. And RFP 20-04 legal services, the committee reviewed all the proposals received for RSP 2004 to provide legal service for the district. The next meeting date is Tuesday, September 17th, 2019 at 5:30 p.m.
Any questions? No? See none? Would you like to continue?
Sure,
Thank
I'll
you.
continue on. You had asked me to make this brief, and I had tried, Vicki, so.
First of all, Jamie, thank you for sending that around to the board, because they have been, I know you put a lot of work into it, and it was excellent reading material, so
Oh,
thank
good.
you.
Good.
But a brief update for the public
Okay.
is fantastic.
Okay. These are the notes from the August 6, 2019 meeting of the Ad Hoc Culture Committee. The committee watched and discussed a presentation on bullying in order to gain a common understanding of what bullying is and isn't, and the issues faced by students in schools as a result of bullying. We have spent many hours researching and trying to understand the nature of bullying in order to determine the best approaches to prevention for the district. And I would like to provide at least a summary of the most pertinent points. First, it is well settled that there are poor, short, and long outcomes for bullied kids, both socially, emotionally, and educationally. Obtaining and maintaining a social position and/or status within the peer group and being accepted by peers are central developmental goals during adolescence, which can make children very vulnerable to bullying and its effects. Although one student may be the instigator, in the vast majority of cases, bullying involves the dynamic of a group of students, not just a dynamic between a victim and a bully. Victims and bullies are not fixed categories of children. Rather, roles can change based on the situation. The key to understanding bullying is the concept of a power imbalance. By definition, bullied kids are victimized, and the reason a bullying event can be successful is that the aggressor makes use of the power imbalance existing at the time of the incident or incidents. These are all bulleted points if it's not making sense. Contrary to popular belief, kids that bully usually do not have low self-esteem, and they often have superior social skills. Factors that may create a power dynamic are many, including that a child has greater popularity, they're liked or supported more, a child is more aggressive, a child is less assertive, a child knows how to hurt and or humiliate a victim, manipulate or threaten another child, being cool or being perceived as cool, and the list goes on. The most common type of bullying are verbal, which involves name calling and is often based on appearance or some characteristic of a person. The other is relational, which uses the relationship or the threat of the removal of the relationship or damaging the relationship as a means of harm. Cyberbullying is bullying that exists in a new and dangerous forum and can be far more devastating due to anonymity, the willingness of kids to do things online that they wouldn't do face-to-face, the fact that an aggressor can inflict abuse 24/7 through multiple means that include email, text messaging, and an array of social media websites such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so on. There is a strong correlation between bias and bullying. There are significant social and personal benefits to bullying, such as achieving social status like queen bees or cool kids, control, demonstrating to an audience that they can dominate, getting away with it, putting kids in their place, fun, entertainment, being the center of attention, and impressing others and relieving frustration. For the district, I think it's important that we begin to distinguish between HIB compliance and evidence-based anti-bullying practices, and that we are careful about not allowing HIB law to be the sole driver of bullying prevention in the district. We could be mindful of and trained to comply with HIB law while at the same time implement a shift in approach to evidence-based practices. The most important thing for our students is that they feel safe and supported. In other words, even if a student doesn't seek help when having a problem with another student, do they know they could get the help if they want it? Right now, we are in the process of arranging a meeting with an expert in bullying prevention, HIB bullying, cultural competence, diversity and bias training at the next ad hoc culture meeting in September to discuss the best strategies to move forward for the district. Further, we would like to explore Holmdel-specific information to inform future training and decisions such as HIB trends in the district, like the number substantiated and unsubstantiated, distinguishing characteristics or bias issue trends, and behavior which the district is aware that may not meet the criteria for HIB bullying but is clearly bullying. We would also like to collect and analyze other climate-related data, including suspension reports, code of conduct violation, and the senior survey that spoke to code of conduct issues as perceived by exiting students. Our next ad hoc meeting date is Tuesday, September 17th, 2019. No, I think that's a different meeting. I don't think we set the meeting. We'll set a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Comments or questions? Seeing none.
So I would just like to thank Mrs. Collins for her leadership and for her research and for helping us to make sense of what's going on. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Lori, you're up.
BG&S met on August 20th at 5 p.m. Thank you, Jamie. I don't have to go over the Holmdel referendum update. Thanks to Ms. Collins. We also had a transportation update. Ms. Carducci reported that all of our students have been assigned bus routes. She has personally driven all of the bus routes to verify the stops, length of time, etc. and parents can find their students' bus information in PowerSchool. We also had the Holmdel High School softball field lights shared services agreement update. Mr. Patrizzo and Mr. Stromsland have reached out to the point person at Township regarding the softball field lights, and they have been advised that we are anticipating a mid to end of September start date. Before installation, the Township will coordinate all on-site logistics with Ken Stromsland and the B&G department. And at this point, the board has nothing else to do since we do not have a role in the installation. Our next BG&S meeting is September 19th at 5 p.m.
Any questions, comments?
Did you guys have any discussions about tennis courts yet?
Yes,
About when they're, because you know it's going to come up with
the tennis courts are
Yeah.
being used already.
Okay.
Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, do we have
Yeah.
a policy? Is there anything, are lights on as well?
So the usage, I don't think that has been worked out yet, but they're being used by the,
Lights on as well?
We haven't had evening.
Okay, cool, thanks.
and there's just irrigation, some irrigation issues that they're addressing as well around the tennis courts.
Our team does have its first home match on September 5th at 3:45 against Bremerton.
Can we do a ribbon cutting? Is that later? We're doing it later. We should all come out and cheer. Excellent. Sorry. I'm gonna cut back to you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Curriculum and Instruction Special Services met on August 21st at 3 p.m. Our policy and regulations, so this regulation was never adjusted to reflect attendance according to the number of class meetings with a rotating drop schedule at the high school. Specifically, the credit restoration component, which was revised to be in line with the chronic absenteeism guidelines of 10% of total class meeting days. The high school administration will include this information along with other information from the student handbook updates in their opening week assemblies with all students in all grades. We had approval of out-of-district travel, approval of out-of-district travel non-public schools, which is the committee is required to approve these professional development activities that are paid for through grant funds that our district manages for the non-public schools in town. Approval of new textbooks and supplemental resources for instruction. There was only one supplemental novel up this month for approval at the high school. Approval of our curriculum guides. Approval of all curricula for 2019-2020. Curriculum list for the 2019-2020 school year. Annually, we approve all of our curricula documents. They are posted on the curriculum and instruction page of our website. Approval of the new and revised curriculum 2019. Revised curriculum list for the 2019-2020 school year. Over the course of the summer, the teachers and supervisors engaged in writing and revising over 40 courses, including a new Rutgers healthcare course and a new LLD content area courses at the high school, and several new elective courses at SATS, such as the game design, engineering, biotechnology, mysteries and history, and creative media. We appreciate all of their hard work that went into developing these courses that will be interesting and exciting to our students, as well as meet and exceed the state standards. Approval of adoption of textbooks, supplemental resources, resource books, and materials 2019-2020 at all 4 schools. The state requires an annual adoption of the textbook and materials used in each of our schools. If you looked at them, you may notice that some of the publication dates on some of these materials are quite old. However, it is important that you note that if a teacher uses only one page, just copies one piece of text from a page, that we have to use these documents that we keep on a list of approved resources. Approval of the Code of Conduct for all 4 schools. These documents are developed at each school and required for annual approval. Approval of school parental involvement policies and student compact, all 4 schools. These documents are also required as part of the title grant funds that the district receives to support supplemental instruction. Approval of our standardized testing schedule for the 2019-2020 school year. Approval of professional development plan, mentoring plan, and program guide. These documents are developed each summer to support the professional development for all of our staff and mentoring of the new staff to the district. Approval for self-assessment for determining grades under the Anti-Bullying Rights Act. This is a summary report that is developed annually based upon the incidents and professional development of the previous school year, which we received. Approval of presenters. These are presenters that are on the agenda that will conduct the PD for our staff. Approval of staff members to attend summer training. Some of our teachers attended training this summer to support their teaching of courses for the upcoming school year, including our new preschool program. Approval of tuition students. These are students from out of the district that will pay tuition to attend our schools. We do not develop new programs for out-of-district students, but we will accept tuition students if we have available seats in special education programs. Approval of student placements. There are students for approval for out-of-district placements, approval of access for ELL's report. Our new supervisor of humanities, Mrs. Parisi, presented the achievement results and analysis for our English language learners for the 2019 testing. Approval of option 2. Mr. Fallon and Mr. Swenson developed a framework for eligibility and participation in the newly developed option 2 program for students engaged in rigorous athletic activities outside of the regular school day. This program was developed at the direction of the board in the July meeting and will be rolled out over the course of the next 2 school years. Information will be sent out to parents, and if they qualify, they may complete an online form to apply for enrollment by September 4th. Students that qualify for the option 2 program for the full year will be enrolled in a traditional health course during the school year for 1 marking period. Students with regularly scheduled study hall, which is an identified period in their schedule rotation, do not qualify for option 2. Students may not enroll in another academic class. Option 2 students will have a study hall during their PE period. The committee discussed the need to provide better support for our student athletes while they are in season, and to give them another option available to assist with homework and classwork that they may miss due to attendance at school-related athletic events. Approval of student teachers, clinical practice, observations, and field experience. At SAT School, there will be a counselor intern, and at Indian Hill, there will be a student teacher for field experience. We had presentations on option 2 and access for our ELLs. In old business, we discussed the pep band club. Dr. McGarry and Mr. Scalacci, Mr. Fallon, and our new assistant principal, Mr. Brown, hosted a meeting of the band, football, dance, and cheer advisors. Mrs. McCarthy, the pep band advisor, will follow up with the student leaders of the band. Based upon parent and student concern, the groups met in an effort to foster collaboration and motivate pep band club and participation. We also discussed summer homework. The supervisors will meet with the teachers during the first week of school to review the summer assignments to ensure that they are reviewed with the students, and if they are to be graded, they will offer them the opportunity for students to revise their work once the grading criteria is clearly communicated. MCVSD acceptances, student acceptances to our vocational schools for the last 5 years were included in the report. 9th grade acceptances are at an all-time high, with 17 more 9th grade students accepted in 2019 than the previous year. The administration will send a survey to students to gain a better understanding as to why students choose to attend the magnet schools rather than enrolling in our comprehensive high school program. Board members requested that the district communicate with the students and parents regarding the reasoning for attending those schools, and that we engage in communications from time to time with those students and parents to maintain a connection. Total enrollment for the upcoming school year in the magnet schools will be 107 students throughout grades 9 through 12. New business, we had option 2 presentation, access for ELL's presentation, student handbooks, the athletic handbooks, and our next meeting date is scheduled for September 18th at 3:30 p.m. I'm done.
Good job, Lori.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments?
I have a comment. After all of that, they had close to a 3-hour workshop on data and use of data instruction. We had the great privilege of having Dr. Tracy Severns, who is a former assistant commissioner for the State Department of Education, join the CNI committee for a really great presentation on different ways that we can be looking at and utilizing data in our work. And so we're going to continue to debrief that 3-hour session at our next meeting. So thank you for a 5-hour meeting.
Mrs. Lu.
Yes, that option 2, Dr. McGarry, do you have a number, how many kids really apply for that at this point?
We're waiting for the board to approve it tonight, and tomorrow morning we'll be reaching out to the students to get that information.
Okay, then regarding that grading, the kids who apply for that option 2, their grading will be S or whatever is
Pass fail.
right, pass and fail things. No, they have different name for that. But anyway, how about the courses, like the health class, the first aid, those kind of stuff, they still need to
They
take
still
it.
take health class, and they'll
But
still be
they are
graded.
not grading for
They're,
that?
they're still graded for health.
They're still grading for that, just the rest of the 3. So that if kids only participate 1 season, and they are eligible for the whole year, or they just, because they say whole year, option 2 is a full year.
You're only eligible when you're actually participating in a sport.
Right.
So
If you're
according
a
to that
three-sport.
season. Okay.
3 seasons.
You have to be in 3 seasons.
3
of the
seasons
sport.
of the sport.
And if you
of
don't
the
do 3
sport.
seasons, you're ineligible for option 2.
Okay. All right.
It will all be spelled out for the students and parents to understand fully. It's not so easily explained,
Right, just when I saw this, I was like, well, are we
but
ready?
something will be going out tomorrow to the students so that they can begin to self-select into that.
But right now, our courses pretty much are all set. And they if they already have that study hall, and they were gonna get along, or they don't, you cannot, original study hall, they can choose the classes. No, because when you have that, you pick up you get approved for that option 2. You're gonna have 1 study hall during the PE class period time. What if the kids already has study hall on their schedule? What they can do, they can pick up other classes to fill it in, or they just leave it there. They might be having 2 or 3 study halls.
So would you like to have Dr. Seeley and Mr. Fallon come to speak about that? Mr. Fallon?
So if a student already has a study hall, is your question, will they be eligible for option 2?
Right.
That is going to be determined on if there's an elective that's open in that period of the study hall, not the phys ed period, but the study hall period. So if there's an opening, then there would be an opportunity for that student to add into an elective course, and then the option two, if they met the rest of the criteria, they would be eligible for option two, and could in turn have their phys ed period turned into a study hall replacement.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know, if they have a flexibility, opportunity to make a change.
It's for students who are eligible, so we're looking at our upperclassmen for that study hall replacement, if you will, by elective courses, if the schedule complements that. But students would be opting to see if there was that availability. They would then get those elective courses, right, for the full year, and then during their PE section, they would have 3 marking periods of PE that would be pass-fail, but they would still have health that would be a graded class during that 1 marking period. So they would essentially wind up with 3 sections of study hall, if you will, and then 1 section of health. They wouldn't have a full year any longer of that study. So it's got a lot of things that would have to fall into place, but we're trying to make it as flexible as possible to accommodate as many students as we can while we're locked into the existing schedule because it's already been published. Next summer will afford us a lot more opportunity to really place kids as best as we can to accommodate as many as want to take advantage of it and are qualified for the option 2 program.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is wonderful. We've been talking about this one for many years.
Yes.
And finally make it there. Thank you so much, Ipira. I know probably we have the option 2 program over like a case by case. This is a big group of kids. It is a really different from the previous years. We have this kind of thing. I saw many, mostly for the academic part, and now we move forward for the sport team kids, and wonderful, thank you, and hopefully we have a very good start.
We hope so too. Thank you.
Do you know how many so obviously if you do the first year just for seniors, do you know how
More
many?
than seniors.
Okay, oh, that's what you're gonna go with, okay.
Yeah, we're
So
going to go for more than just the seniors, but when it comes to, for students who don't have a study hall, they're kind of the easy ones. We'll be able to accommodate them if they qualify for option 2. They're a no-brainer.
Right.
But for a student who already has a study hall, who wants to forego that full year study hall in lieu and replace it with elective coursework
Right.
courses, and then they want to opt into option 2 during their identified PE period, those are the ones that we're going to have to say, okay, we'll start with students who want to take advantage of it, find out who they are, then figure out a form where they can fill it out and identify them, and then we'll have to look at how do we identify, right, like maybe start with the juniors and seniors can fill out the form, and then we start with the seniors and then kind of work our way down. There's not going to be, realistically, that many elective seats to take advantage of over the course of this year because everyone's schedules are set. So we'll accommodate as many as we can for those students that have that study hall with a matching elective or electives during that period, but we'll really be able to plan much better for this with a master schedule for next school year. But we'll do all that we can to accommodate juniors and seniors this year.
Any idea, if you had to guess, like a number, there's only so many kids there, there's only so many 3-sport athletes, girls and boys, are you talking in the teens?
Here's what we
if you
don't
had to
know.
guess,
Here's why we don't know the answer to that. One of the components of an opportunity to opt into option 2 isn't only school-affiliated athletes. There are some club-level athletes, if you will, that will qualify. So we don't know the breadth of that yet. But we're going to say for any student who thinks that they qualify for one of these 3 pathways, let us know why you think you qualify. And if you do, we'll work with them. And we'll do the best that we can to accommodate them.
Yeah, so I think speaking for the board, I think everyone's really happy that this is being looked into. It has been something that's been discussed, so it's really exciting to see this come forward. And I know a lot of schools in New Jersey have had this in place for quite some time. So one of the things that I'd like to see, like additional thought given to, is maybe our single sport athletes, our football players. Say they give the most amount of time, right? So if they only play football, it would be nice to see them during that season be able to take an extra study hall because they're dedicating so much time, whether it be through training or practice or then the additional games on the weekend. So if we could somehow also consider incorporating some flexibility with study hall for our single sport athletes or our double sport athletes who are not full year athletes, I think that would be something that would help a lot of our student athletes as well.
We
So-
talked about that and wanting to really accommodate as many kids as we can. We really can look at the breadth of what that would entail for the upcoming program of studies. I appreciate that point and see that as an educator, so we can take a look at how we can potentially manage that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, because that's my concern also is, you know, I want to be able to capture, remember you talked about the sophomores might not be eligible, but there might be, the amount that we're talking about might not be as great as a burden.
Yes, so the sophomores without a study hall right now, we're hoping to capture them and giving them the option too, as the committee requested. So we'll hopefully capture them in this very first round, and they would have the opportunity to opt in.
And how about the ones that have a study hall but would have an elective that would match that study hall? Would that be
So we
available?
would start with the juniors and seniors. We think we're gonna max out with, we could potentially really max out with the seniors, we think. But if we end up with open spots after the seniors and the juniors, I would be open to the sophomores for sure. We don't think we're gonna get that far. We don't have that many open seats.
And the other piece of this too is we're collecting data, right? So because it's not going to be too long before we start talking about the budget for the 2021 school year. And in order to accommodate all those folks who want to take an extra elective, we're going to have to look at some extra staffing because we don't have the capacity right now to offer more sections of classes without adding staff. So it's another consequence of implementing this is we're going to have
I'm
to look
excited
at
about
that.
that. And more classes, more electives. Because, I mean, it would be great for kids to take advantage of even more elective opportunities. I know, for instance, you know, the 7th and 8th graders are going to have a great year.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking through a lot of that curriculum, those updates, and those classes are pretty exciting. I mean, I know I have a daughter who got into theater, and she's like, oh my God. And I said, it's going to be awesome. We have a brand new teacher. The curriculum looks great. The histories or mysteries of history, whatever that class is, I would sign up for that immediately. That sounds awesome. So I would like those same opportunities available to our students as well. So I'm sure the board is very supportive. This is something, thank you for getting on this because this is something that the board has been talking about for a while. So I was happy to hear Dr. McGarry said that we were going to work on it for this year. But I would like to capture as many of our student athletes who are representing us so well out there and all the time. And I just drove on a bus for a little bit, so I'm sure, you know, they might need some downtime after that and can't really, you know, come home and get to all their homework. Because, you know, this issue intersects all the issues that we keep hearing as a board, and whatever we can do to help them to get through that season, that homework, that marking period, to be as successful as they can be is what we want to provide. And whatever we can do as a board to support it, the board is on board.
I think the nice thing that we'll know going into this year that students who qualify that want a study session will have that opportunity if they don't already have it in their schedule because they're our first priority and they will get that study class immediately. So that will be an immediate win, and then we'll work on more for kids who would prefer not to have an identified PE class and have the study then and then take advantage of it.
Because there are also, like, I know we were about capping it, but there might be students that one of our board members mentioned, which was a good point, that might like the grade that they get in phys ed because they're so athletically focused.
Yeah, we anticipate there are students who will not want to take advantage of this. It does.
So maybe that's why I'm saying I want to make sure we can open it up as many as we can. And I like the single spot. So I would like, and also look at single season sports because there are some kids that might just play one season and don't get it. I mean, I think it's great if kids do 3 seasons worth of sports. I'm an advocate of that, but you know, maybe they're not available to them. So anyway, any other comments or questions for Mr. Fowley and Dr. Seeley?
Just to be clear, I don't want to lead or have anyone be misled. The single season sports piece is not, so we will definitely look to implement that, but for this year, that would be very challenging, like in the moment, to make that piece of this as well, because what we're bound to that 150 minutes of it,
But if they
ensuring
have-
that we're adhering to that, and we don't have an elective cycle that complements a single season athlete, because it's gotta be a semester, so it would just be challenging in the year.
I know
proponent of
some
it.
that, some of them could be single season athletes, but they could also be in a club, so they could be
There's
eligible.
a pathway for
It would be
that.
the
Right.
option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
there's a pathway
you're
for that
probably gonna hear
already.
from some of them that they're not only coming here to play sports, they're not only, being super student athletes, but they're also, like, as soon as the season's shut down, they're in their club. And they get, like, 3 weeks
there's a
off.
path already for them, they can take advantage of that,
Yeah,
we're
yes.
accommodating that.
I know, I
right
just wanna make sure that we're.
Yeah, it would only be single season athletes who participate in a high school sport, but not an outside activity, that would be the challenge of accommodating them immediately, but that's something we
We
can.
circulated something like that amongst the committee. There was a circulation about that option, where we could accommodate single sports kids.
With club outside,
No.
that,
No, it was something, if you do
I haven't seen
tennis, but then you don't do anything else for the rest of the year, you might be able to opt out of gym for tennis for the fall, and then the rest of the seasons, you're in gym.
And maybe not have an elective, but have just a study hall.
I haven't seen anything of that we discussed in the initiative team. So that's new to me tonight.
No, if you could
Yeah.
discuss that in committee next, or Dr. McGarry, if you all can look at that option.
Thank you.
I had a question for Lori. Lori, so on the Monmouth County vote tech stuff, could we look, is it possible we could look, so if you look, 37 freshmen, 23 sophomores, 25 juniors, 22 seniors, do we know how many that come back? It'd be good to see that,
Yeah,
'cause you've
those
got,
numbers.
I know some, I know some kids that have come
Yeah.
back, but I'd love to know that data, because it looks like obviously 37, and they either,
A lot of them do come back, you're right.
right, because they don't think it's
Be
as
nice
good as
to
it
see.
was, or it's too hard, or whatever the situation is. It'd be interesting to see what the residual rate of coming back is. Obviously, we know what's going out, but of the 107 around there, so.
So that's why we talked about keeping those lines of communications open with them, because
Absolutely, yeah.
they are still our students. I mean, we do make sure that their tuition's paid. We make sure that they get bused to their schools, so I think they are our students. So I think the more we can do to open those lines of communication, and I think once they see.
They come back and play sports, but they're not eligible for option 2.
They're out. Maybe they'll come back for option 2. Any other committee reports? Mr. Foster?
I have the Community Relations Committee report. So the Community Relations Committee met on August 20th at 4 p.m. and conducted the following business. The committee asked the superintendent to negotiate a service agreement with Lori Perlow of Education Services Commission of Camden to provide specific PR support for the district. The board recommended this action last fall. Additionally, Dr. McGarry provided an update on back-to-school communications. Parents have been notified that open house will be delayed because of construction issues. There will also be adjustments made to the September gym classes at SATS, given that the locker rooms will not be completed in time for the start of school. The committee suggests that individual board members attend back-to-school night sessions to answer questions from the public. Special events will be planned to recognize the openings of the tennis courts and the engineering lab. The committee suggested that the administration should invite former school board members and members of the 2020 committee to these events, as well as local business leaders to the engineering lab ribbon cutting in November. The committee encouraged Dr. McGarry to appoint a member of his team to take leadership in developing a Holmdel School Hall of Fame. The committee discussed the status of the current Holmdel School District website, reviewed social media policy issues, and suggested that Dr. McGarry do a public survey to see how people actually use the site and what features or changes should be made in response. Mrs. Carducci provided an update on our efforts to develop a roster of internships for students through our local community partnerships. The meeting adjourned at 5:03. The next meeting has not been set yet.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions?
I have one. So I'm sorry, Brian. But I'm glad to see that the Hall of Fame was brought up. That's something I've been bringing up for a while. So can you just elaborate on that conversation a little?
So what we discussed was that it wouldn't be just specifically an athletics Hall of Fame. We mentioned some potential people that we wanted to look at possibly to help, facilitate the process and get it kind of moving forward. But it's very rudimentary discussion at best.
And we have to wait till the referendum is complete too. But that'll be great.
I think it made a lot of sense, and everybody that was there in the meeting was definitely on board with it.
Thank you.
Anything else?
All right, seeing none, on labor negotiations, the Personnel Committee met on September 22nd. We reviewed the personnel items on the agenda. We talked a lot about our new teachers, some transfers. We discussed negotiations with the HTEA and table of organizations. And our next meeting will be the Thursday before our next Board of Ed meeting, as it's our standing meeting. Any questions? Thank you, everyone, for your committee reports and all your work this summer. I mean, the board did a lot of meetings. And thank you for coming to the retreat. I thought it was a really good retreat. I think hearing from, at the retreat, we had the opportunity to review our senior survey that was done for our outgoing seniors. It was put together pretty late in the season, but we got almost 50% response from our now alumni of Holmdel High School. And Dr. McGarry had us take an opportunity in looking at those comments. We each had an opportunity to read those comments out loud to one another in different ways, strengths, weaknesses type thing, and it was very powerful information that was shared with us by our former students. And we thank them for taking the time to do that and informing our decision making as we move forward. All right, at this point in the meeting, we will take questions or comments from the public on action items only. Seeing none, does anyone want to talk? Yes. Okay. No, you don't want to? Katie.
To the microphone.
I'm Lexi Wojcik, also an incoming sophomore, and combined, me and Katie have a total of 5 varsity letters from our freshman year.
And for our GPAs, we both had 3.75 and taking honors classes and advanced classes in the next year.
We're here today to ask for your help in allowing varsity sport athletes to be able to be exempt from gym, to have an extra study hall for us to get all of our work done and be able to continue to excel in our classes.
This option is also, it's in motion at other schools surrounding us, like Madeline, Colts Neck, Marlborough, and Freehold. So easy to move forward to.
Also, there is no need to provide extra staff for an extra study hall for us because there's a study hall class every period where students are always in the commons or in the library doing their work.
And for our early schedules for sports, since we both participate in soccer, we practice 6 days a week, and the practice can last from 3-4 hours, and on game days it can be even longer because of the transportation to games. And we both run track, and track during winter and spring, the meets can last from 6 to 8 hours. So by the time you get back to your house, there's very minimal time for work because you still have to eat, shower, and do all that, and you're drained from your stream instead.
We really feel this is a necessity for varsity athletes because it's just such a higher competitive level and there's just such minimal time for us to be able to do our work. And by the time we get home from practice and games and everything, we don't have the full energy to be able to complete our homework and go further with our studies and continue to be able to excel in class and maintain or even raise our GPAs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You did a very good job.
Thank you.
Alexis.
Do you have any questions?
Does anyone have questions for her? I know that they work very hard. They're always out practicing. As soon as the season's over, when they're released from they're from Mr. Gelke, they're going to be playing far away. They go far away too.
Yeah,
They're on a very competitive team.
Our club teams, they don't just go around the school schedule, we go from our varsity practice to our club practice. So it's just a lot of sports.
And on the weekends, we have games or like tournaments that can be like up to 2 hours away, so it doesn't even give you the weekends for time to do schoolwork, which is also why I double.
Did you find study hall helpful last year?
Yeah, very.
I got most of my work done in cycle.
Yeah, especially because I ran at Penn Relays and Nationals, and both of those I had to miss school to participate in as a freshman, which is very difficult to complete my work when I have such minimal time.
Do you both have study halls this year?
Yeah, we were actually both going to take Principles of Nutrition, which is one of the Rutgers classes, but unfortunately that class did not run, and that would have meant that we would only have study hall for half a year.
And like, you sort of shy away from taking an extra elective if you're gonna have to drop the study hall, because it's like, you wanna take an extra class, but it's hard to take it because you don't wanna miss that extra time that you could potentially be doing work that you can't do that night.
And you have to get a certain amount of credits in every elective category, so it might not give you the opportunity to take every elective that you wish to take. So the extra study hall would be very beneficial for us as varsity athletes.
Thank you, girls.
So just to clarify, you're asking the board to approve item number 17, the approval of option 2, correct? Okay.
Thank you, girls.
Sean T. Dow, 12 Primrose Court. I'd just like to give credit to the ladies for coming up bravely to the mic, as a lot of our students have over the last couple of board meetings. I think it's great that they're getting involved and advocating. But in light of all these sports talk, I think I would be remiss if I didn't ask the board to invite all of us to stand and pledge the flag tonight. I think, did we skip that?
Oh, we opened the meeting.
Oh, okay, I missed that, I guess.
Sorry.
I just figured I'd throw that
If
in.
you came then, you would have gotten a bus tour on top of
Okay.
it. It's a bonus.
I just, with all the sports talk, I figured I'd mention that, so, thank you.
Yes, for all of you here, we did open the meeting earlier because, 5:30 we were here and we had to get on the bus, so we did the flag salute. Any other questions on agenda items only? Seeing none, can I have a motion for items number 1 through 29, 31 to 60? Move.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Flynn.
Yes.
Mrs. Briamonte.
Yes.
Mrs. Liu.
Just the top of the meeting, so, abstain. Number 2.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Reddy.
Yes to all, abstain number 3.
Mrs. Amorati.
Yes.
Mrs. Collins.
Yes.
Mr. Wall.
Yes.
Mr. Foster.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 30, Mr. Reddy, would you please do that for the board?
Of course. Acceptance of a retirement groundsperson district. Whereas Mr. Frank Malign has served the Holmdel Township Public Schools with distinction since April 3rd, 1989, and whereas Mr. Frank Malign has always displayed a work ethic that goes beyond the stated requirements of the job, and whereas Mr. Frank Malign has faithfully executed his duties with skill and competency, and whereas Mr. Frank Malign has earned the respect of his colleagues and community residents, and whereas Mr. Frank Malign has submitted a letter announcing his retirement from the Holmdel Township School District effective 1 October 2019. Now therefore be it resolved that the Holmdel Township Board of Education accepts Mr. I'm supposed to read that, right? Yeah. Frank Malign's retirement with regret and deep gratitude for Mr. Malign's dedication, loyalty, and outstanding services performed, and further extends to Mr. Malign its best wishes for a happy and healthy retirement.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. May I have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Flynn.
Yes, congratulations.
Mrs. Briamonte.
Yes, enjoy your retirement.
Mrs. Liu.
Yes.
Mr. Reddy.
Yes, congratulations.
Mrs. Amorati.
Yes, congratulations, and thank you for your many years of service.
Mrs. Collins.
Yes, thank you for your service.
Mr. Wall.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Foster.
Yes, thank you and congrats.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you. At this point in the meeting, we do old business. In old business, I just want to note, as Dr. McGarry said during his superintendent report, there is a group of goals that I would like the board to review and prepare for discussion in committee for the upcoming school year. I'm going to hand those out now. Any other old business? Any new business? Okay. At this point in the meeting, we have questions or comments from the public on any item. Anything you would like to talk about? Seeing none, may I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel item?
Move.
Second. All in favor, show of hands. We will not be, we will come back and we will not be coming back into open for purposes of taking any action. So everyone have a wonderful night and thank you for coming.